You're watching Wake Up Nigeria, and it's time for a book chat. Today, we have Dr. Michael Ogu, a certified global talent management leader and an associate certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. A fellow of multiple institutes, Dr. Ogu is also an accomplished author of 6 books, sharing his strategic insights and passion for developing others. It's such a pleasure to have you in the studio with us. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much, Mary.
Awesome. So usually we do book chats, but today we have books chats. Because we are reviewing 3 books. And the reason for this is because there are 3 volumes. So we have volume 1, we have volume 2, and then we have volume 3. Now these are books focused on your growth. Starting from, it's called Career Surge, by the way. So Career Surge, igniting and accelerating your journey to the top. And the first book has to do with the foundational principles you need to have. The second has to do with the growth principles. So when you have your foundation right, then you talk about growth. And then finally, the value creation and impact principles, which is when you've grown and then you're now sharing your knowledge and impacting on others. I wonder, what inspired this trilogy?
Wow. So 3 years ago, I did a research on people who had built successful
Wait, you wrote these books in less than 3 years?
So I actually used 18 months to write the books, but the research started 3 years ago. And I was conducting a research on people who had built successful careers. And from my research, I found a common thread. What was that common thread? They were applying the same set of principles to build their successful careers. And I now put those principles into 3 buckets. The foundational principles, 7 of them. The growth principles, 7 of them. And then the value creation and impact principles, 7 of them. So that was what informed the trilogy.
21 principles in all.
Yes.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about each sets. Let me put it that way. So we'll start from the volume 1. And so volume 1 talking about the foundational principles. Now I like the fact that when you were composing, putting things together on the book, you ensured that you were very clear on what each meant and what each serves to achieve as well. So let's talk about the principle of identity. The fact that you chose that as the first principle made me know that, okay, this guy knows what he's about, because the first step to actually realizing your goals is to identify who you are, what you represent, and if you do not know your self-identity, it's usually difficult for you to identify with anything else. So let's talk about the principle of identity and clarity. What are the fastest ways to achieve those?
Great question. So the principle of identity is the bedrock upon which the other 20 principles stand upon.
Yeah.
And I often say to people, your identity is not tied to your bank account, is not tied to your accomplishments,
Absolutely.
is not tied to who you are as a person. Your identity is rooted in your beliefs and your values.
Yeah.
That's what your identity is rooted in. And when we talk about clarity, clarity is having a clear goal. And I'm excited that when the previous session happened, we talked about vision boarding. You must be clear about your goals and your vision.
Absolutely.
Where do you see your career turn out? So the principles of identity and clarity are pretty much the foundational principles that set the tone for the other principles across the trilogy.
Okay, so now let's talk about strategy. So when I saw strategy in foundational, a part of me was like, okay, should strategy be in growth? But then, of course, you have to strategize to achieve your goals before you can even start growing.
Exactly.
Because sometimes people believe that you have to get to a particular stage before you can go, start making certain plans. Tell me more about that.
So the principle of strategy now helps you to put the course of action. So you have a goal. How do you achieve that goal? That's what the principle of strategy does. And much more importantly, in the principle of strategy, I talk about the strategy you devise to navigate the 6 phases of your career. Every individual's career goes through 6 phases.
Please run us through them.
The learning phase, the value delivery phase.
Which sometimes takes a very long time.
Yes, exactly. It pretty much could take 6 to 7 years.
Yeah.
So the learning phase, the value delivery phase, the earning phase, the visibility phase, the legacy and giving back phase, then the exit and winding down phase. So the principle of strategy helps you to put together a roadmap or an action plan to navigate those 6 stages to help you achieve your career goals, following from the principle of clarity.
Now, from identity to clarity, we have strategy. Now, personality is another thing, because when I saw personality, I was like, but we just dealt with identity. Could you separate those two for me?
2 similar psychological constructs, but they are different. Your personality is how your identity is expressed in relationships. So how you interact with people, how your identity interacts with people is your personality.
The manifestation of your identity.
Exactly. So how people show up. And I often say that people's personality is how they show up. It's the expression of your identity through human relationships or human interactions.
Then there's intentionality, opportunity, spirituality, which influences many people as well as their decisions. Tell us about those 3.
So in the principle of intentionality, I created a model called the Career Intentionality Model that has 4 components: lifelong learning, intellectual humility, optimistic attitude, and of course, what I call prevention of career obsolescence. So when you understand the model, it will help you be intentional about your career. Then, of course, the principle of opportunity helps you to recognize opportunities, whether they are hidden opportunities or advertised opportunities. And of course, the principle of spirituality helps you to stay anchored to who you are and ensure that you can then express yourself as a being who is connected to a higher source of wisdom.
Absolutely. Okay, so now let's talk about the volume 2, because there's a lot to learn from there. This one actually has to do with, okay, you started, now you're building character, responsibility, capability, capacity, mastery, agility, tenacity, and accuracy. The one that really struck me there was the agility. And I remember seeing a photo this is it.
Yeah.
That had to do with somebody, and I'm like, please tell us more about this particular volume.
All right. So volume 2 builds on volume 1. And in the principle of agility, I share with career professionals and individuals how to ensure that you are not rigid in your career approach. Because if you are rigid, what will happen to you is what we call career obsolescence, where you are not staying up to date, you cannot pivot easily. So the principle of agility says you must pay attention to factors around your career environment that will help you pivot when there are changes. But I also like to talk about the principle of capacity and capability, because they are very important principles in volume 2. People often say they are the same thing. They are not. So let me use 2 bottles of water to explain the difference between capacity and capability. Now, if you take 2 bottles of water, one 500 milliliters, the other one 750 milliliter, in terms of functioning, which is capability, they have the same capability, which is to hold water. But in terms of capacity, they don't have the same capacity. One can take 500 milliliter less, one can take more, 750 milliliters. So the principles of capacity and capability are intertwined. They work hand in hand such that while you build capability, you can also build capacity to take on more responsibilities as you advance in your career.
Now, we have to head straight to the kitchen, but I need to talk about volume 3 quickly, which talks about energy, velocity, quality, productivity, synergy, visibility, and the last one, legacy, which of course is what is the peak of your ladder, so to speak, of success. So could you quickly run us through those?
Interesting. So the volume 3, which is the apex volume, I often say that your greatest legacy does not lie in what you have accumulated. Your greatest legacy lies in your investment in people.
Yeah.
So the principle of legacy shows the career professional who has risen to a certain level of success how to reproduce that success in people. But very important for me in volume 3 is the principle of quality. How do you ensure that you deliver quality work such that you can get recognition and accolades for your work? That's what the principle of quality does. And I like to quickly touch on the principle of synergy, which shows you how to build relationships that will help you advance your career. Now, the principle of synergy is built on what I call the gifts model. No successful career is achieved in isolation. Yeah. And if you understand how to build relationships, relationships will give you
I really
gifts.
wish we could continue this conversation, especially to make reference to the Omashola example you gave as well. A lot to learn, really. But hey, Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3 of Career Surge, Igniting and Accelerating Your Journey to the Top. That's a book you need to, or rather a series of books you need to get. We're heading to the kitchen now for breakfast, myself and Dr. Ugo. Okay, so I hope you don't mind. No. You'd like to have breakfast with us, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so